September 26, 1944. The South Pacific. Major Gregory Boyington was flying his 345th combat mission. He was an ace, a legendary pilot, 28 confirmed kills, the best in the Marine Corps. But he wasn't supposed to be flying that day. His squadron had just been rotated home. He was supposed to go with them. Instead, he volunteered for one more mission. One more flight over enemy territory. He was chasing a Japanese bomber, chasing it hard, pushing his Corsair fighter to the limit. The radio crackled, anti-aircraft fire coming from the islands below. Boyington didn't break off. He pushed harder. He wanted that kill. Then, his aircraft was hit. Smoke poured from the engine. The Corsair started losing altitude. Boyington knew he wasn't getting back to base. He was going down, over enemy territory. He ejected from the cockpit. His parachute opened. He drifted down toward the ocean. A small raft was waiting for him in the water. But he wasn't alone. Japanese soldiers on nearby islands saw him coming down. They launched patrol boats. They were coming for him. Boyington made a choice. He could try to evade, he could hide, he could fight. Instead, he did something remarkable. He surrendered. Not because he was defeated, not because he was broken, but because he'd already won. This is the story of the Black Sheep Squadron. It's a story about an outcast pilot who created the most unconventional fighting unit in Marine Corps history. It's a story about defiance, against the enemy, against the system, against impossible odds. It's a story about a man who refused to follow the rules and proved that innovation matters more than protocol. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you'll understand why Pappy Boyington became one of the most decorated and controversial figures in American military history.
Gregory Boyington wasn't supposed to be a war hero. He was born in 1912 in California. His family wasn't military. His father was a dentist. But Boyington had something burning inside him, a need to fly, a need to compete, a need to be the best. He went to the Naval Academy, then he joined the Marine Corps. He became a pilot. For years he flew in peacetime. He was good, but he was also difficult. Boyington didn't take orders well. He questioned authority. He pushed boundaries. The Marine Corps didn't like that. When the war started, Boyington was passed over for combat assignments. The brass thought he was a troublemaker. So he joined the Flying Tigers in China, the American volunteer group fighting the Japanese. Per American Volunteer Group records, Boyington flew 12 missions with the AVG and scored 6 confirmed kills. He was getting combat experience the hard way, as a civilian volunteer in a foreign war. By 1943, the Marine Corps finally called him back. They were desperate. American pilots were dying. They needed experienced pilots, even troublemakers. Boyington was assigned to VMF 214, a fighter squadron in the Pacific. But when he arrived, he found a mess. The squadron was brand new. The pilots were inexperienced. The unit had no cohesion, no identity, no victories. This was supposed to be his chance, his opportunity to prove himself. Instead, he found himself leading a group of rookies. That's when Boyington did something brilliant. He decided to break every rule. Not Navy rules, not regulations, but tactical rules, conventional wisdom. He started recruiting misfits, pilots who didn't fit the mold, pilots the other squadron commanders had rejected, pilots with attitude, pilots with talent. Boyington built a unit of rebels. They called themselves the Black Sheep Squadron. The name came from a Marine Corps joke. A black sheep is an outcast, an unwanted animal. That's what these pilots were, outcasts, misfits, rebels. But they were pilots, and they were about to change the war. Boyington named himself Pappy, even though he was only 32 years old. It was a nickname that emphasized how much younger the other pilots were, but it also created distance, authority, leadership. The Black Sheep Squadron flew Corsair fighters. The Corsair was fast, it was powerful, but it was hard to fly. The cockpit was far back, the visibility was poor, the aircraft could be unpredictable. Most pilots hated it, but Boyington loved it. He mastered it, and he taught his pilots to master it too. He developed tactics nobody else was using: high-altitude interceptions, aggressive dive attacks, formation flying that emphasized speed and agility. It was unconventional. The Navy fighter schools taught different tactics, but Boyington's way worked. It worked because he understood one thing: the best tactics are the ones that confuse your enemy. The Japanese expected American pilots to fight one way. Boyington's Black Sheep fought another way, and that made all the difference.
The Black Sheep Squadron's first missions were mediocre. They flew patrols. They encountered Japanese aircraft. Some engagements happened, but they weren't scoring kills, not like other squadrons. Per Marine Corps records, other fighter units were claiming 10, 15, sometimes 20 kills per mission. The Black Sheep were getting single kills. Pappy Boyington watched his pilots. He studied their mistakes. He saw what wasn't working. Then he made a decision. He changed their tactics. Instead of spreading out, looking for Japanese aircraft, the Black Sheep would focus their efforts. They would find a concentration of enemy aircraft and hit them hard. Coordinated attack, multiple Corsairs working together, one pilot diving to attack, others covering from above, then role switching, rotating the attack, hitting hard from different angles. It was a new kind of teamwork, and it worked. Suddenly, the Black Sheep started scoring. 2 kills per mission, 3 kills, 5 kills. Per combat action reports from the South Pacific, the Black Sheep Squadron's kill rate increased by more than 300% after Boyington implemented his new tactics. The reputation grew. Other pilots wanted to join. The Navy started taking notice. But Boyington wasn't satisfied. He wanted more. He wanted dominance. On September 12, 1944, the Black Sheep were flying escort for bombers. Japanese fighters attacked. There were lots of them. Zeros, experienced pilots, professional military opposition. Boyington was outnumbered, but he didn't break off. He attacked. That day, Boyington in the Black Sheep shot down 20 Japanese aircraft. 20 in one engagement. It was the most any American squadron had claimed in a single day. The Navy was stunned. Suddenly, the Black Sheep weren't misfits anymore. They were legends. Boyington himself had become an ace, multiple times over. His confirmed kills kept growing. 15, then 20, then 25. He was closing in on becoming the top ace in the Marine Corps. The Navy started publicizing him. Pappy Boyington and his Black Sheep Squadron, the Maverick commander and his rebel pilots. It was a good story. The kind of story the Navy wanted told back home. Unconventional heroes, defiant pilots, men who didn't follow the rules but won anyway. But the more successful Boyington became, the more controversial he was. Other squadron commanders resented him. Higher-ranking officers questioned his methods. The Navy brass wasn't sure if they liked what he represented. Boyington was proving that unconventional approaches could work, that the book, the official Navy tactics manual, wasn't always right, that a Maverick could be more effective than a by-the-book commander. The military doesn't like to admit that, so they prepared to send Boyington home, rotate him out, retire him from combat. He'd done his job, he'd proven his point. Now let someone else take over the Black Sheep. But Boyington had other ideas. September 1944. The Black Sheep Squadron was being rotated home. After months of combat, dozens of missions, 97 confirmed kills as a squadron. The pilots were exhausted.
They were ready to go home. But not Boyington. He had 28 confirmed kills. He was close to becoming the top Marine Corps ace. Very close. There was a pilot named Eddie Rickenbacker. In World War I, Rickenbacker had scored 26 kills. He was a legend, an American hero. Boyington wanted to beat that record. He wanted to have more kills than Rickenbacker. So he volunteered to fly one more mission. Just one. After the rest of the squadron flew home. The date was September 26, 1944. Boyington was assigned a bomber escort mission. He would fly top cover for B-25 bombers hitting Japanese targets. Simple mission, routine, just one flight. He took off from his base on Vella La Vella. The Corsair climbed into the tropical sky. The bombers were below him. His wingman was nearby. The mission was proceeding normally. Then Boyington spotted something. A Japanese bomber, far below, a Mitsubishi twin-engine bomber. Boyington wanted that kill. He radioed his wingman. Then he dove. The Corsair's nose pointed downward, the engine screaming, the speed building, the altitude decreasing, the distance to the target closing. Boyington's guns were ready. He was closing on the bomber. He was about to fire when anti-aircraft fire erupted from the islands below. Japanese ground fire, lots of it. Tracers arced upward. The rounds were coming right at Boyington. His Corsair was hit. The engine started smoking. Boyington broke off his attack. He tried to gain altitude, but the engine was damaged. Smoke poured out. The aircraft was losing power. Boyington knew he couldn't make it back to base. He was going down. He had seconds to decide what to do. He could bail out over water. He could try to glide to the nearest island. He could ride the aircraft down. Boyington ejected from the cockpit. His parachute opened. He drifted down toward the ocean. Below, he could see Japanese patrol boats. They saw him coming down. They were moving towards him. Boyington landed in the water. He was a strong swimmer. He could have tried to evade, to paddle away from the boats, to hide among the islands. But he didn't. Boyington made a calculation. The Japanese would find him eventually. Resistance would be futile. Fighting just would get him killed. So he made a decision. He signaled the patrol boats. He surrendered. The Japanese picked him up. Boyington became a prisoner of war. What happened next was kept secret for years. Boyington was interrogated, beaten, starved, held in brutal conditions for months. The Japanese wanted to use him for propaganda. The famous American ace, captured, beaten, broken. But Boyington wouldn't break. He followed the military code of conduct. Name, rank, and serial number. Nothing more. The Japanese moved him to different camps. He experienced unspeakable conditions. Starvation, disease, abuse. Other prisoners died around him. Boyington survived. By sheer will, by refusing to give up. The war ended on August 15, 1945. Boyington was freed from a POW camp in Japan. He had spent over a year in captivity. He was skeletal. He was weak, but he was alive. When Boyington was released from the POW camp, he was a ghost. Literally. The American military had reported him missing in action, presumed dead. No one knew he was alive. When he returned home, America had to reckon with what had happened. Boyington had been fighting. He had been winning. He had been shot down. He had been tortured. He had survived. The Navy recognized his achievement, not just as a pilot, but as a soldier, as a man who refused to break under torture, as a symbol of American resilience. In 1945, Boyington was awarded the Medal of Honor, America's highest military decoration, for his leadership, his combat victories, and his survival. But something had changed in Boyington. The torture had marked him. The captivity had broken something inside. After the war, Boyington struggled. He drank heavily. He had trouble finding civilian employment. He suffered from what we now call PTSD, though it was called shell shock back then. The Navy offered him promotions, offices, comfortable positions, But Boyington couldn't settle into peacetime military life. He felt out of place. The same defiance that made him great in combat made him impossible to manage in peace. He left the Marines. He tried different jobs. He struggled with money. He battled his demons. For decades, Pappy Boyington was forgotten. The Black Sheep Squadron's legend faded. The Maverick ace became just another aging veteran. Then, in 1976, a television show was made about the Black Sheep Squadron. It was called Ba Ba Black Sheep. It dramatized their exploits. It made them famous again. Boyington was alive to see his legacy restored. He became a television personality. He did interviews. He told his story to new generations. In 1990, he published his memoir, Tanya, a brutal, honest account of his life, his struggles, his victories, his defeats. It became a bestseller. By the time Boyington died in 1988, he had become an American legend again. His funeral was attended by hundreds of former pilots, fellow Black Sheep Squadron members, rivals from other units, people he had inspired. The man who defied the system, who proved that unconventional methods could work, who survived torture and came home to inspire a nation. That's the real legacy of Pappy Boyington. Not just his 28 confirmed kills, not just his Medal of Honor, but his refusal to accept that there's only one way to do things, that you have to follow the rules, that Mavericks can't change the world. Boyington proved all of that wrong.
The story of Pappy Boyington and the Black Sheep Squadron teaches us something important. It teaches us that the best leaders are often the ones who don't follow the rules. Not rules that matter, rules about honor, rules about protecting your people, but rules about how things are supposed to be done. Boyington understood that winning requires innovation. It requires risk. It requires the courage to do things differently. The Black Sheep Squadron had 97 confirmed kills. They were one of the most effective fighter units in the entire war. Not because they had the best aircraft, not because they had the most experienced pilots, but because they had a leader who was willing to defy convention, who looked at the accepted tactics and said, "There's a better way." And then he proved it. If you found Pappy Boyington's story powerful, hit the like button. It tells us you want more stories about unconventional heroes. Subscribe. We release forgotten WW2 stories every week. In the comments, tell me, what would you have done on that final mission? Would you have flown it knowing you were close to going home? Let's discuss. Next video, The Ghost Army That Fooled Hitler, an incredible story about soldiers who won battles without firing a shot. Thank you for watching. Remember, the greatest victories sometimes come from the leaders brave enough to break the rules. Pappy Boyington was one of those leaders. That's why he matters. See you next time.